The streets of Flushing Meadows had witnessed champions before. Arthur Ashe Stadium had seen Serena Williams, Roger Federer, and Rafael Nadal walk its hallowed grounds. But on this warm August day, something entirely unprecedented was unfolding. Security guards had to form a shield around her just to guide her through a wave of supporters filming and cheering. A sea of red, white, blue, and yellow, thousands of Philippine flags waving in the warm August air, stretched from the entrance gates to the practice courts. Alexandra Eala had arrived in New York, and the city responded as if a president had touched down. "Coming for you, New York," she had posted on social media. The words were bold. The message was clear. She was ready for the challenge ahead. The U.S. Open social media team captured the moment perfectly. They posted a video of Eala training at Arthur Ashe Stadium with the caption, "Alex Eala has arrived." The video garnered over 12,000 likes within hours. Eala Mania had arrived in New York, and it was unlike anything the tennis world had ever seen. The supporters had come in their numbers to follow her. Eala raised her hands in a positive gesture, thanking the fans for the support she was becoming very much accustomed to. She had been a trailblazer for tennis in Southeast Asia, especially her native Philippines, which had started following the sport much more with her arrival proving a pivotal factor. This was not just a tennis player arriving at a tournament. This was a phenomenon, a movement, a moment that would be remembered long after the final point of the U.S. Open was played. August 22, 2026. New York City. Flushing Meadows. The USTA Billie Jean King National Tennis Center. The preparations for the U.S. Open were in full swing. The world's best players were arriving, practice courts were filling up, and the energy was building toward the final Grand Slam of the season. But nothing could have prepared anyone for the scene that was about to unfold. Alexandra Eala had arrived. She posted on social media with a simple message, "Coming for you, New York." The words were bold. The message was clear. She was ready for the challenge ahead. She didn't waste a single moment. Immediately upon arrival, she headed straight to Arthur Ashe Stadium for a training session with her coach Joan Bosch from the Rafael Nadal Academy. Alex Pukpukin na sa training sa New York. Alex in intense training in New York, one headline read. Tinutukan ito and I Rafael Nadal Academy coach Joan Bosch habang pumapalo ito. Rafael Nadal Academy coach Joan Bosch was watching her as she hit. But it wasn't just the training that captured the world's attention. It was the welcome she received. Thousands of Filipino fans had gathered at the venue, their flags waving proudly, their chants of "Laban, Alex," echoing through the humid air. Security guards had to form a shield around her as she made her way through the sea of supporters. Fans reached out to touch her, to take photos, to be part of the moment. Eala Mania has continued in New York with the supporters coming in their numbers to follow her, one report noted. This has been shown with multiple security guards having to guide her through a wave of fans filming the talented tennis player with their phones and cheering. The Filipina sensation raised her hands in a positive gesture, thanking the fans for the support she was becoming very much accustomed to. She had become a trailblazer for tennis in Southeast Asia, especially her native Philippines, which had started following the sport much more with her arrival proving a pivotal factor. The scenes were reminiscent of what had happened in Toronto, where the 12,500-seat Sobeys Stadium had been packed with Filipino fans cheering loudly for Eala. They were reminiscent of what had happened in Washington, where tournament chairman Mark Ein had revealed that at least 80% of ticket requests were about one player, Alex Eala. They were reminiscent of what had happened in Cincinnati, where ticket prices had surged by nearly 70% overnight just to watch her play. And now, New York was getting its own taste of the Eala effect. Eala is one of the most popular players on the WTA Tour, one report noted. Her support has been well documented amid her incredible rise through the ranks with some glorious results and runs as of late, including her first ever WTA title at the DC Open. The fans had turned out in huge numbers, and Eala was ready to give them something to cheer about. Eala's arrival in New York was not just a celebration. It was also a lesson learned. During an appearance on the Players Box podcast in April, the Filipina opened up about being swarmed by fans after leaving a training session at the Australian Open in Melbourne, an experience that made her realize the need for security. In Australia at the NTC, I trained outside and I trained on one of the courts, and I did not have security, which next time I will probably make sure they're there. But after training, It was full. I came in and it was full, and I went out of the court and the traffic of people was coming because they wanted me to sign. I couldn't move, right? Eala said. Eala revealed that the situation grew dangerous as the enthusiastic crowd pushed her against a wall. And there was a wall back here. And if the traffic of people was coming and they couldn't see what was happening over there, they were all just pushing. They were all kind of pushing you against the wall. And I was getting closer and closer to the wall. I was like, oh, that's kind of dangerous, she added. That experience had clearly shaped her approach in New York. Security guards formed a shield around her as she made her way through the sea of supporters. The measures were necessary. The crowds had grown even larger since Melbourne. The fans, however, were not deterred. They continued to cheer, to wave their flags, to chant her name. And Eala, despite the security precautions, made sure to acknowledge them, raising her hands in thanks. The scene was a testament to Eala's growing popularity and the challenges that came with it. Eala's arrival in New York came with historic news. She was projected to enter the U.S. Open with a career-high world number 18 ranking, making her the highest-ranked Filipino women's tennis player in the Open era. With her lofty ranking came a favorable seeding, a first for any Filipino in the history of the U.S. Open. According to the official WTA rankings, Eala entered U.S. Open week with 2,281 points. Her profile now listed matching numbers for her current position and career high, number 18. The achievement extended a breakthrough season in which Eala had repeatedly rewritten the tennis record book for the Philippines. She had surpassed the previous regional women's singles record shared by Indonesia's Yayak Basuki and Thailand's Tamarine Tennisagaran, both of whom had reached number 19 in the rankings decades earlier. Turned 18 twice in this lifetime, Eala wrote over a screenshot of her updated WTA profile, adding a teary-eyed emoji. The clever Instagram story, set to Khaled's 18, marked her career-best number 18 ranking, a playful nod to her actual birthday 3 years earlier. The significance of this achievement cannot be overstated. Just 1 year earlier, Eala had entered the U.S. Open as an unseeded player who had to fight through the draw without the protection of a seeding. She had made history by winning her first Grand Slam main draw match, but she was still an unknown quantity on the biggest stage. Now, she was returning to Flushing Meadows as a seeded player, a legitimate threat, a player who had beaten multiple top 10 opponents in a single season. Coming off her first singles title at the Mubadala DC Open earlier this month, Alex Eala will look to conquer the 2026 U.S. Open in New York, one report noted. Pakai ni Eala na malampasan ang second-round finish nito nung nakarang taon. Eala aims to surpass her second-round finish last year. Before the singles main draw even began, Eala was already making waves. She had secured a wild card into the U.S. Open mixed doubles main draw alongside Canadian star Felix Auger-Aliassime. The pairing, which came about through their shared agency and mutual connections, had instantly become one of the most anticipated partnerships of the tournament. Auger-Aliassime, who had never played mixed doubles at a major before, was looking forward to experiencing what he called the Eala Effect. It is a great opportunity because I did not play last year, but this time around to feel what it's like to have the Eala Effect and fan base behind me is going to be funny, Auger-Aliassime said. The Canadian star acknowledged Eala's growing influence. She is younger than me, but she has the fan base. She is carrying the crowd, so it's going to be interesting. The mixed doubles field was stacked with some of the biggest names in tennis. The confirmed field included Novak Djokovic and Aryna Sabalenka, Iga Swiatek and Casper Ruud, Elena Rybakina and Taylor Fritz, and Daniil Medvedev and Diana Schneider. Eala and Auger-Aliassime were among the wildcard teams alongside Leylah Fernandez and Frances Tiafoe, Taylor Townsend and Alexander Zverev, Alina Svitolina and Gael Monfils, and defending champions Sara Errani and Andrea Vavasori. Read those names again, one report noted. Djokovic, Sabalenka, Swiatek, Zverev, and right there in the same competition, Alex Eala. For Philippine tennis fans who have followed her journey for years, that alone says something about just how far the Filipina has come. The mixed doubles tournament would run from August 24th to 26th. Eala and Auger-Aliassime were set to face the married pair Alina Svitolina and Gael Monfils in the first round. There was also an interesting connection between Eala and Auger-Aliassime. Both had ties to the Rafael Nadal Academy. Eala spent important developmental years training in Mallorca, while Auger Aliassime previously worked with Tony Nadal as part of his coaching setup. Now those paths converged in New York. Before the main draw even began, Eala was already making waves. She had been chosen to participate in one of the most prestigious events of U.S. Open Fan Week, the Stars of the Open exhibition. The event, scheduled for August 27th at Arthur Ashe Stadium, featured some of the most exciting young talents in tennis. Eala would face her close friend Iva Jovic, a rematch of their French Open first-round encounter. Eala has been chosen to feature in the Stars of the Open, a charity event annually held during U.S. Open's Fans Week, at 6 p.m. on Thursday, August 27th at the Arthur Ashe Stadium in New York, one report noted. The event was a recognition of Eala's growing status as one of the sport's most exciting young talents. She had become a huge draw wherever she played, and the U.S. Open had taken notice. Alex Eala is now a huge draw wherever she plays, and so it comes as no surprise that the world number 18 has been chosen to feature in the Stars of the Open. The exhibition would give fans a preview of the stars who would define the future of tennis. And Eala, at just 21 years old, was firmly among them. Eala's arrival in New York was the culmination of a remarkable season. She had already achieved more than most players do in a lifetime. Born on May 23, 2005, in Quezon City, Philippines, she had become the highest-ranked Filipino player in WTA history. She had won her first WTA Tour singles title at the Mubadala DC Open in Washington, defeating a stacked field that included world number 3 Jessica Pegula in the final with a bagel third set. She had reached the fourth round at Wimbledon, stunning defending champion Iga Swiatek on center court. She had climbed to a career-high world number 18 ranking. Most definitely an outside shot for the U.S. Open title, but based on her form coming into the tournament, she has to be a contender, one report noted. Eala debuted in the U.S. Open last year and earned her maiden major win ahead of getting dumped out in the second round. She has continued to develop as a player since, and is a fully fledged member of the WTA Tour, especially after her DC Open triumph. The goal was clear: go further than ever before. Alex Eala's arrival in New York was more than just a moment. It was a recognition of her status as a global icon, a symbol of hope and inspiration for millions of people around the world. The numbers told the story. She had packed stadiums wherever she went. She had drawn massive crowds, sold out tournaments, and brought new fans to the sport. She had become the WTA's big ticket. Eala Mania had begun at the Australian Open, when long lines of fans wrapped around walkways outside her matches. It had continued in Abu Dhabi, Doha, and Wimbledon. It had reached new heights at the Canadian Open, where every match she played sold out. It had culminated in Cincinnati, where she had done what no player in the history of the tournament had ever done before. She had sold out a final she wasn't even playing in. And now, in New York, it had reached a fever pitch. Eala's legacy was no longer confined to the tennis court. She had become a cultural icon, a symbol of hope and inspiration for millions of people around the world. And her arrival in New York was just the latest chapter in a story that was far from over. From the cracked courts of Quezon City, where tennis was a luxury, to the center courts of New York, where she had become the biggest draw in women's tennis, Alexandra Eala had proven that champions don't just win matches, they move mountains. And the thousands of Filipino fans who had flooded Flushing Meadows? They knew it all along. From the cracked courts of Quezon City to the center courts of New York, where she had become the biggest draw in women's tennis, Alexandra Eala had proven that champions don't just win matches, they move mountains. And the thousands of Filipino fans who flooded Flushing Meadows, who planned their trips around her matches, who traveled across the country just to see her play, they knew it all along. The U.S. Open will never be the same. The tennis world is stunned, and Alex Eala is just getting started.